A dolphin in the Atlantic Ocean once called out a specific sequence of clicks and whistles, and a dolphin it had not seen in 20 years called back with the exact same signature. That is not a metaphor. That is not poetic language. Scientists recorded it. It happened. Welcome to Moonlit Minds, and today, every single fact we cover is about the most shockingly intelligent creature in the ocean. Strap in. Fact number 1. Dolphins have personal names, and they use them their entire lives. Here is something that was only confirmed in a landmark 2006 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by Dr. Vincent Janik at the University of St. Andrews. Every single bottlenose dolphin develops a completely unique whistle, called a signature whistle, within the first few months of its life. This isn't like a bird call that all members of a species share. This is individual. Personal. Like a name. But here's where it gets unbelievable. Other dolphins in a pod don't just recognize this whistle, they copy it to get that specific dolphin's attention. They are, functionally, calling each other by name. Researchers tested this by playing recorded signature whistles to dolphins through underwater speakers. When a dolphin heard its own signature whistle played back, it responded, turning toward the speaker, vocalizing in return. When it heard a stranger dolphin's signature whistle? Minimal reaction. And that memory fact from the intro? That was from a 2013 study also led by Dr. Janik. Dolphins remembered the signature whistles of companions they hadn't seen for up to 20.3 years. For context, that is the longest demonstrated social memory of any non-human animal ever recorded. Elephants are famous for their memory. Dolphins just beat them. Visual note: display a waveform diagram showing two unique signature whistles side by side, labeled Dolphin A and Dolphin B, with a timeline infographic showing the 20-year recognition span. Fact number 2. Dolphins get high deliberately, carefully, and in groups. In 2013, a BBC documentary filmed a behavior that marine biologists had suspected for years but never caught on camera so clearly. A group of young bottlenose dolphins in the Indian Ocean were observed carefully, gently handling a pufferfish, passing it between them, one by one. Pufferfish, when stressed, secrete tetrodotoxin, one of the most potent neurotoxins on Earth. In large doses, it kills. In tiny, controlled doses, it produces a narcotic-like trance state. These dolphins were not hunting the pufferfish. They were not eating it. They were delicately nudging it, seemingly deliberately provoking just enough toxin release, and then floating near the surface in what marine zoologist Rob Pilley described as a trance-like state. They appeared mesmerized by their own reflections in the water surface. This behavior requires knowledge, knowing which species produces the compound, knowing how much interaction is too much, and then sharing that technique within a social group. That is not instinct. That is learned, transmitted, cultural behavior. To date, this is one of the clearest documented examples of a non-human animal deliberately seeking out an intoxicating substance for recreational purposes. Not accidentally. Not as a side effect of feeding. On purpose. Visual note: show an educational diagram of a pufferfish with a labeled callout indicating tetrodotoxin gland locations, alongside a behavioral flowchart showing seek, handle, float, repeat. Fact number 3. The U.S. Navy trained dolphins as military operatives, and some are still active. The U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program began officially in 1959 in Point Mugu, California. It was classified for years. What they discovered changed their entire approach to underwater defense. Dolphins, specifically bottlenose dolphins and California sea lions, were trained to detect underwater mines, locate missing equipment on the seafloor, and identify unauthorized divers approaching naval vessels. Their biological sonar echolocation is so precise that dolphins can detect a 3-inch metal sphere from 370 feet away in open water. No human-made sonar system at the time came close to that resolution. During the Vietnam War, dolphins were deployed to guard the ammunition pier at Cam Ranh Bay against enemy combat divers. During Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, Navy dolphins were deployed to the port of Qasr in Iraq and cleared it of mines within days, a task that would have taken human divers weeks and carried catastrophic risk. As of the most recent public Navy disclosure in 2022, the program still maintains approximately 70 dolphins and 30 sea lions stationed at Naval Base Point Loma in San Diego. Their exact current mission parameters remain classified. These are active military assets. Think about that. Somewhere off the coast of San Diego, right now, there are dolphins who technically hold a rank in the United States Navy. Visual note: use a declassified program timeline infographic from 1959 to 2022, with location pins on a world map showing confirmed deployment sites. Fact number 4. Dolphins can recognize themselves in a mirror, a test only a handful of species pass. In 2001, psychologists Diana Rice and Lori Marino published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that upended our understanding of dolphin cognition. They gave bottlenose dolphins access to mirrors, and what happened next placed dolphins in an extraordinarily exclusive club. The test is called the Mirror Self-Recognition Test, or MSR. It was originally designed by psychologist Gordon Gallup Jr. in 1970. The protocol: put a mark on an animal's body in a spot it cannot see directly. Place a mirror in front of it. If the animal investigates the mark using the mirror, touching it, examining it, that suggests it understands the reflection is itself, not another animal. Most animals fail this completely. They either ignore the mirror, or they treat the reflection as a rival. The animals that have passed? Great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, elephants, magpies, orcas, and bottlenose dolphins. The dolphins in Rice and Marino's study used the mirror to examine marked areas on their bodies, contorting to see the marks reflected back. They also spent time doing what the researchers called contingency testing, making repetitive unusual movements while watching the mirror, as if deliberately checking that the reflection matched their own actions. Self-recognition implies something profound, a sense of self. A concept of I. In the entire history of animal cognition research, fewer than 10 species have demonstrated this. Visual note: display a clean comparison chart listing all MSR-passing species with their scientific names, brain-to-body ratio, and year of confirmed MSR success. Fact number 5. Dolphins have a second brain organ that humans simply don't possess. Inside a dolphin's forehead is a structure called the melon, a rounded, fatty organ that is central to echolocation. But here is what most people don't know: the melon is not a passive organ. Dolphins can voluntarily control its shape with specialized facial muscles, physically focusing and directing their echolocation beam the way you would adjust the zoom lens on a camera. The echolocation system itself is staggering in resolution. A 2007 study published in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America found that bottlenose dolphins can distinguish between objects that differ in thickness by as little as 0.2 millimeters, using only sound. They can effectively see the internal structure of objects acoustically. They can detect a hollow object versus a solid object from a distance without touching it, because their sonar penetrates surfaces. Here's the implication that stops marine biologists cold: when a dolphin echolocates a pregnant female dolphin nearby, it can detect the fetus inside her body. Researchers believe dolphins may be aware of each other's pregnancies before any behavioral signs appear. Additionally, their echolocation clicks reach frequencies up to 150 kHz. Human hearing tops out at around 20 kHz. Dolphins are operating in a sensory dimension that is, quite literally, beyond human perception. Visual note: show a detailed labeled cross-section diagram of a dolphin's head highlighting the melon, phonic lips, and auditory pathway, alongside a frequency range comparison bar chart. Fact number 6. Dolphins have distinct cultural groups, and those cultures are passed down through generations. In Shark Bay, Western Australia, researchers from Georgetown University have been studying a population of Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins continuously since 1984, one of the longest-running dolphin studies in the world. What they documented over those decades is one of the most important findings in all of animal behavior science. A subset of female dolphins in Shark Bay discovered that they could protect their sensitive rostrums, their beaks, while foraging on the rocky seafloor by wearing sea sponges over them like gloves. This is tool use. But unlike most documented animal tool use, which researchers debate may be instinctual, this behavior has a clear cultural transmission chain. Daughters learn it from mothers. It is not genetic. The gene variants associated with this group do not mandate the behavior, they just correlate with it. The behavior is taught, socially transmitted, and maintained across generations exclusively within this community. A 2021 genetic study published in Nature Communications confirmed that the sponging dolphins form a distinct social network. They preferentially associate with other spongers, forming what is essentially a culture within a culture. A subculture. The same way human cultural groups form around shared practices. This is not metaphor. This is, by the academic definition used in anthropology, a dolphin culture. And it has been continuously maintained for an estimated minimum of several thousand years. Visual note, display a social network diagram showing dolphin interaction clusters, spongers versus non-spongers, with generational lines connecting mother-daughter sponging pairs. Fact number 7. Dolphins sleep with half their brain switched off, while the other half stays fully alert. If you asked most people how dolphins sleep, they'd guess the dolphins just sink to the bottom, or come up to the surface. The reality is far stranger and far more impressive. Dolphins practice what is called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, USWS. One hemisphere of the brain enters deep sleep, producing slow delta brainwaves, while the other hemisphere remains fully awake and conscious. The dolphin keeps one eye open, the eye connected to the awake hemisphere. The other eye closes. This allows them to continue swimming, continue surfacing to breathe, and continue monitoring their environment for predators, all while literally sleeping. When the first hemisphere has rested sufficiently, the sleeping and waking hemispheres switch. A 2012 study published in PLOS One by Dr. Brian Branstetter showed that bottlenose dolphins could maintain a perfect echolocation accuracy rate for 120 consecutive hours, 5 full days, using this sleep system. No degradation in performance. No sleep deprivation effects. The biological sleep mechanism is so efficient that the dolphins showed zero cognitive impairment after 5 days of continuous USWS. For comparison, a human being begins to hallucinate after approximately 72 hours without sleep. A dolphin can outperform a fully rested human for 5 straight days without ever fully losing consciousness. Visual note, show a split brain diagram with EEG wave pattern overlays, slow wave delta on the sleeping hemisphere, active alpha waves on the awake hemisphere, with a 120-hour timeline bar. Fact number 8, dolphins grieve their dead, and the evidence is scientifically undeniable. This is the one. This is the fact that, once you know it, changes the way you see an ocean. In 2018, marine biologist Joan Gonzalvo of the Tethys Research Institute documented a bottlenose dolphin mother in the Ionian Sea carrying her dead calf at the surface for at least 10 days. She was not alone, members of her pod swam close, frequently. They did not disperse. They stayed. But this is not an isolated incident. A comprehensive review published in the journal Zoology in 2016 catalogued 78 documented cases of cetaceans, the group that includes dolphins and whales, carrying, staying with, or returning to the bodies of dead companions. These cases came from 20 different species and spanned every major ocean on Earth. Here is the detail that demands your full attention. In some documented cases, dolphin mothers carrying dead calves showed measurable changes in swim patterns, reduced feeding behavior, and altered social engagement, behavioral markers that, in any human study, would be classified as acute grief responses. They show these markers specifically in relation to the dead individual. Not randomly. Not because they are unwell. In direct, persistent, prolonged response to the specific loss. A 2020 study by researchers at the University of Milano Bicocca analyzed 104 documented cases across cetacean species and concluded the behavior was too consistent, too targeted, and too prolonged to be explained by instinct, confusion, or parental bonding reflex alone. The researchers used the word in the paper that changes everything. They called it, quote, grief-like behavior consistent with emotional response to loss. Dolphins mourn. The ocean is not empty of feeling. It never was. Visual note, display a world map infographic with pinned locations of the 78 documented cetacean bereavement cases, color-coded by species, alongside a behavioral timeline chart showing duration of post-death proximity behavior. 8 facts. 8 reasons the ocean deserves more wonder and more protection than we give it. A creature that names its children, grieves its dead, forms cultures that outlast human civilizations, sleeps with half a brain while the other half watches the stars, and we share this planet with it right now. If even one of these facts hit you differently, if even one made you stop and think, drop a comment below. Tell me which one. I read every single one. And subscribe to Moonlit Minds for daily mind-blowing facts that will change how you see the world.